Hello, I'm Fred Evans. Welcome to Montgomery Week in Review. Congressman Jamie Raskin is sponsoring this summer an initiative called Democracy Summer to inspire activism in the next generation. Shirley Brandman, a regular contributor to Montgomery Week in Review, will comment. Leagues across the United States as well as locally are meeting to plan campaigns to further their Making Democracy work efforts. Elaine Apter, the co-president of the Maryland League of Women Voters, has the story. After a recount, Mark Elrich has been declared the winner of the Montgomery County Democratic primary for county executive. But there may be an independent candidate, Nancy Florine, joining the race. Linna Barnes, associate producer of this show, will explain. Jackie DeCarlo of Manna Food received one of the awards given by the Sodexo Corporation in Paris, France this spring to 5 women for food distribution achievement. Jackie is here to tell us about it. Welcome to all of you. Welcome, Shirley.
Thank you.
Tell us about this program that Congressman Raskin is sponsoring.
Thanks. So this is a wonderful effort, I think, because it is focused on the next generation. The idea behind Democracy Summer is they're creating these Democracy Summer fellowships. They're targeting high school and college students and bringing them in for 3 things. One is to give them a little bit of a context of history about moments in history when we have engaged the citizenry. So they're modeled a little bit on Freedom Summer. They talk to them about what it takes to run a campaign. So they're bringing in veteran volunteers, they're bringing in experts to talk to them about how you organize a campaign, how you mobilize the electorate, what's involved in fundraising, what's involved in communicating. They get information and practice in public speaking, in the art of persuasion. If you're going to knock on my door and come to talk to me about a candidate, how do you talk about that? And then they mobilize them across the country to work on races. This one is committed to the big blue wave, so they're looking at districts that might flip from red to blue. And so the young people get both tools, exposure, history, and then a chance to put it all in practice on the weekends.
How many students or young people are we talking about?
So Democracy Summer Maryland, right now there are 2 sessions. They're each about 5 or 6 weeks.
Wow.
The students work for about 30 hours a week. There's 78 students in the first session. I believe it's 126 in the second. And they network. So there are alumni from a past Democracy Summer, and the vision and the hope is to keep this going, in part because it really does have this idea about inspiring the next generation. And when we think about activism, we want to make sure that young people, that they care, that they think about what goes into public service, both maybe to inspire some of them, maybe some of them are future candidates, but also so that they can be objective and to understand as they hear about people who get in a race or people who run, what does that mean, what's involved? And so that they working together, I mean, by bringing together these cohorts of young people, they have a network. So it's no one of us alone, but how do you team up with people who share values?
So is this a partisan effort?
It is a partisan
sounds like
effort.
it is with
This is a partisan effort. Congressman Raskin, right. This is Democracy Summer, so the young people who apply, they can themselves be registered Democrats, they can be independents, they can be green, but you have to have a commitment to wanting to elect Democratic leaders and progressive leaders.
How do they find out about the program?
That's a really good question. I know that there's been a huge effort to try to publicize it. There are 4 key headquarters right now. So this summer they're in Silver Spring, Maryland, they're in Charlottesville, Virginia, they're in Philadelphia, and they're in Des Moines, Iowa. So I think locally, because they're not able to pay but offer travel stipends and some meals, they are looking in their general area. So I imagine that they reach out to high schools, college students, through the network, through social media, and locally. And it is an application process. So they are looking to bring together a diverse group of young people from high school all the way through college.
Now, is this the first year for this program?
They did it last summer, but this is the first year, I think. So this one's tied to the midterm. So there's a focus on the 2018 elections. I know Congressman Raskin's hoping to be able to keep at least some of the college students on to stay all the way through November and to sort of watch the efforts of what it takes to get people's attention early on, but then to actually get them out to vote.
You mean this midterm election will be important?
This midterm election will be important, and I think it is critical for, I think, the effort of Democracy Summer to have young people sort of see the power of that. Right. And so when when you think about activism and think about it being smart activism, so how do you really prepare people thoughtfully? I personally am aware of some efforts that have targeted, for example, women leaders, But I think the idea of reaching young, I think the idea of starting in high school and thinking about college is both because sometimes you have to kind of really grow up with the notion to think about what it takes. Sometimes the inspiration to say, well, gee, that is something I could do, as opposed to thinking about that's something for other people.
Go ahead. Just the knowledge that you have a say in what's going to happen and you're part of the process, I think is very, very important, because we don't see that across the country much.
Is there a plan to nurture that enthusiasm beyond the election? So how long were our alumni engaged?
Well, so as you might imagine, with the technology tools we have, the network of young people stay engaged. So I was recently at an event where several Democracy Summer alumni from last summer were there. We're interacting. In fact, several of the Democracy Summer alumni were featured in the news because they participated in the march protesting gun violence that happened just a few months ago. So it does awaken a kind of thoughtful and deliberate political engagement. And I do think the hope is that alumni will stay connected, both maybe as mentors, maybe they'll come back as speakers, maybe they'll be donors. And maybe some of them will, run in the future. But, I think breaking it down so that you understand why it matters, and then having the opportunity, honestly, to listen. When I think about sending young people out to knock on doors, but not just sort of unprepared, but to really understand that I really have to hear what you're saying. I need to be prepared to respond. I have to actually engage with you. And then to come out at the end sort of saying, did I persuade you? If not, might I come back? Might I be able to follow up, and understanding that it's not one conversation that's necessarily going to turn someone around, but this is an investment of time and an investment of building community and relationships in order to engage people in the electorate.
In the short time, we have about 30 seconds on this segment, what is a major message that this program is trying to get across to the young people?
I think the major message is that political and social change is possible, that each one of us has the potential, that there are tools that you can learn and hone, and that you should don't self-censor yourself. If you have the inspiration, if you want to try it, sign up, find a way, be active, and learn.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you very much. Very interesting. We'll keep tabs on that. Elaine, welcome.
Hi, thank you. It's good to be back.
And how is the League doing?
Well,
what's your major effort?
What Shirley was talking about is really exciting, and it connects completely with the League. The League has gone back to its roots and basically focusing on making democracy work. The things that you can do as an individual and groups to actually change what's going on if you want to change or keep it going. But as Shirley said, you do have a say. We want people to feel that it's important, that their vote is important, that their ideas are important.
And how do you do that?
Well, one of the things is, of course, the first thing everybody says is, well, we have to register voters. That is important. But if you register a voter that has no idea what the election is about and never goes to the polls, we have not done our job. So, of course, the League, the first thing, it was born with the women's suffragette, and the reason was teaching women the issues that are going on that they're going to vote on.
And
that's just where we are.
Correct?
Yes, we're going to be 100 years old.
So the League of Women Voters has such a wonderful reputation because you do try to put out information. You do try to help a voter who wants to find out about a particular candidate. But still, that leap between registering and voting, what is the League thinking about the barriers, the obstacles? Why are people not voting?
Right, and we're really trying to look at that and trying to get people out to, because there's so much social media now and things like that, there are all kinds of avenues that people can get information. And one of the best ways, and we seem to cut this out, is talking to your neighbors, to your family, to your friends, and say, what do you think about this issue? Or, it's not bad to ask, to talk about politics. And that scares me, that we have said politics is a no-no, because if we don't say anything, then, that information, that sharing isn't out.
I was going to say, just beyond that, though, I know one of the initiatives that a few years ago was Take a Neighbor to Vote.
Yes.
And, I mean, that was really, go and ask your neighbor if they're voting and if they need a ride, but do it in your neighborhood, and that's one way to bring out more votes.
Right.
And I would imagine you're very supportive of early voting and just opening up opportunities. Do you guys have a position on voting by mail and what some states like Oregon do?
Any way it makes it easier to vote, we really do. We worked very hard in the last session in Maryland to get unaffiliated voters to be able to vote in the primaries. We were very close. That's going to come up. Of course, redistricting is one. People sit back and say, well, you know, my district is this way. Why should I vote? Because my vote doesn't count. Well, we learned this in the last primary.
Absolutely.
77 votes.
county
So
executive.
for the county
executive,
executive split, you know, and there was a recount. So those of you that didn't get out and vote and your candidate didn't win, there's only one person you can blame, and that's yourself.
So when you think about what makes
And
democracy
76
work,
other people.
is the league trying to support or encourage these kind of neighborhood conversations? Are there sort of toolkits for, you know, invite 10 people and here's a conversation you can
and now
have?
that's an excellent idea, and we do. We encourage people, say, to go to coffees and to have discussions, to go to forums. We do the forums. Sometimes they're a little overwhelming because there are a lot of people, but it's a wonderful way to actually have a give and take, and that's what you want. Prepare some questions, and if nothing else, prepare some questions that you're interested in and write that candidate and say, how do you feel about this? How about that 270 corridor? What's your solution? What's your solution to the problem over the bridges to
Well, I think
Virginia?
that's such an interesting point, because I feel like what inspires people to actually get out and vote are either that they're jazzed up about a particular candidate, or making real for them how these people or this level or this office is going to make a decision that affects you. And it may be, it may be your road, it may be your school, but they are going to decide, and if you want a say in that, you have to vote.
I think that's one thing that's always concerned me about the school board. People don't realize the amount of money that the school board decides on how to spend.
$2.6 billion.
Right, exactly.
Right.
I mean, and yet that is at the very bottom of the ballot.
Right.
Many people don't even get that far.
Right.
Independents can always vote for school board,
Right.
but many
Right.
of them don't go in because they can't vote for the
Or
in the
people
Democratic
say,
or
I
the
don't have
Republican
kids
primary.
in school, it doesn't affect me. Well, yes, it does. It affects your property values. Businesses coming in will look at the education system. So it goes beyond whether you have a child in the system.
Don't mean to cut you off. In the short time that remains,
Yes.
what's a major message you want to send to non-voter Harry or Helen?
Okay, find out, get educated. We're going to have the voter's guide, Vote 411. Get as much information on the candidates and issues. Be confident and let your voice known.
Excellent. We have to take a break. We'll be right back. Thank you. And we're back. Linna, you're going to talk about something that's been a very interesting political situation here in Montgomery County.
It is. The Democratic and Republican primaries were at the end of June this year. And the most interesting race was that for county executive on the Democratic ballot, because there, the two top candidates at the end of the count were 79 votes apart. That was David Blair and Mark Elrich, who was 79, 78 votes ahead.
He was 82, I thought.
Oh, 82, whatever.
Recount.
But Blair did ask for a recount, and in the recount, it turned out to be 77 votes.
Yep.
Went down to that, the difference. So if you think your vote doesn't count, just think of how little that difference was. And but Mark Elrich will be facing Robin Ficker, the Republican candidate. So that's settled. What isn't settled is whether or not there'll be an independent candidate in the race.
And who might that be?
Well, Nancy Florine, who is currently a county council member at large, and she did not choose, she was term limited, so she couldn't run for county council again. But unlike all the other term limited candidates, she did not choose to run for county executive. She decided that she would retire from politics. Yet, when these results came out, she has decided to put a petition forward. She has to collect over 7,000 signatures, and see if she can be put on the ballot.
So is this the first time that an independent has run? Is this the first time this has happened?
I don't know. I think so. Certainly since they've gone to the system that, I think it is the first time.
Yeah.
Because I'm just thinking about who the candidates have been. Gilchrist, he was county executive, elected. I'm going back all the way, and I can't think of any other race. The issue was, she has said that people approached her saying that they think Mark Elrich he's a Democrat, but they think he is too liberal a Democrat, and he is anti-development. Mark would say, I'm not anti-development, I'm just more careful than some of my fellow council members. But Nancy says that she's been asked to run, and so she's going forth with her petition.
Now, I heard that part of the motivation was that there was low turnout, and therefore just a small segment of people have basically made the decision. Is that true? Was there depressed turnout for such an important primary race?
It was the lowest number of people voting in a primary for quite some time in recent years. So that there certainly fewer did. I know both Mark and David Blair and Mark Elrich both had under 40,000 votes. It was 37,000 plus. So you think about that, that's not a lot of people. There were many other candidates.
Seven total?
Right. I think 7 total.
Yeah.
The third candidate was Rose Krasnow, who came in third. But she,
and Nancy had supported Rose in the primary.
Right. Yes. So. And interestingly, Rose is actually supporting Nancy in gathering her petitions and says she will support her. Most of the other Democrats, I think all of the Democrats in the race have all said they will support Mark Elrich, except for Rose. I know David Blair said he will support the candidate. George Leventhal and Roger Berliner, who are both candidates.
One of the things,
Ike Leggett, the county executive, he's supporting Mark. So.
One of the things is this is a good example of a person becoming a candidate with a very, very small percentage of the votes of the Democratic Party, really. And one of the things that League is really looking at is alternative types in something like this, where a person would have to have a majority vote in order to go up from the primary to the general election, which is a very interesting concept, and you know, it is around the country here and there. But you really wonder.
It's called ranked order voting. And
yeah,
it promotes
ranked and things
runoffs,
like that.
Right?
Runoffs. The question is, you know, does a candidate with such a small percentage of vote really have the backing of the Democratic Party? And this is where Nancy is coming in.
And I think help me with this, but I think there are about 600,000 people registered to vote in the county. We're a very high registered voter county. So if you think about 37,000 have chosen this candidate.
In the short time that remains, this is very spiritual discussion. No, spirited.
Spirited.
Not spiritual. Oh my goodness. What do you think is going to happen?
Who knows? It seems to me that the Democratic Party is coalescing around Mark Elrich, the candidate of the party. There is real fear that they'll take votes away from him, and Robin Ficker, the Republican candidate, will win if somebody is an independent. So stay tuned. We don't know whether she'll even get enough petition signatures.
But she has till August 6th to get on the ballot.
Congratulations again on your recognition. Tell us about the program with MANA.
Well, you know, I've been doing nonprofit work for a long time, but I really had the thrill of my career to represent MANA Food Center in Paris, France this spring. I was one of 5 women, one from Brazil, one from South Africa, Ethiopia, and France, and myself. And we all received Women Stop Hunger Award from the Sodexo Corporation. They're based in, their world headquarters is in Paris, but also in the United States, they're based in Gaithersburg. And they've been a long-term supporter of MANA Food Center, the Stop Hunger Foundation. And so a member of our board, who is a Sodexo employee, nominated me, and I was chosen to represent what's going on in the United States to stop hunger. And women are at the forefront. Women are most often people who are food insecure, and they're responsible for families. So they also have some of the most innovative approaches to ending hunger.
So kudos and well deserved.
Yeah,
so does Sodexo target this award at women because they're trying to encourage more women, because they see more women at the forefront? I'm really interested in the award targeting women who are in this area.
Yeah, well, Sodexo has a great tradition of lifting up, say, their employees who volunteer in the community, or youth who have a future for economic justice. But they about 3 years ago designed this as a way to give women who are being successful a platform, because time and time again, the strategies that women use are successful. So for instance, what we're trying to do is we have, with Sodexo support, renovated a school bus and turned it into a kitchen and a pop-up pantry that can reach and teach kids that may be in apartment complexes or at the other end of the spectrum, seniors who are living in low-income housing. And we get in there and we give them fresh foods. We show them good techniques on how to use those foods in a healthy manner. And so that's the kind of thing that Sodexo wants to do more of. And 60% of our staff are women. So these great ideas are being cooked up, food pun intended, at MANA, and we were very proud to be recognized internationally.
And so does Sodexo connect you then with other women leaders so that you can share wonderful ideas? Your idea maybe could be replicated someplace else?
Yes, so I mean, part of this was just being shoulder to shoulder for a week in Paris, and they treated us wonderfully and got to see all the sites. I traveled with Chandra Jenkins, who's the executive director of the Sodexo Stop Hunger Foundation. So we did all the tourist things, but we also sat around and talked about what's your successes, what are your barriers, and as you were pointing out with social media keeping kids connected, we're trying to stay connected through LinkedIn and other platforms.
Go ahead.
I was saying, was there a particular program in another country that was impressive?
I was going to ask.
Yeah, so my colleague from Brazil, she actually was sort of like a master gardener in her neighborhood, where she was helping women learn how to grow their own food and be self-sufficient. But then they realized that they could create their own restaurant. And so now they have customers that come to the neighborhood restaurant that this woman helped with her team of neighbors create. So those are the kinds of things that MANA is also exploring with our partners. We can't do it all, and there's a lot of great stuff happening in Montgomery County, but we want to see what are some strategic partnerships where we can bring participants into perhaps the workforce around food service and hospitality, or how can we help them grow their own gardens and maybe have master gardeners, who are great supporters of MANA, by the way, grow their own food. And so those are the kinds of ideas that we know, okay, it worked here, and so maybe we could do that in Montgomery County.
How is your fresh food supply at MANA? I know you have that, not just, you know, the groceries, so to speak.
Yeah, well, the summer is an odd time for us because we have a lot of produce, which we're very grateful for, from the farmers markets, from the master gardeners. But our shelves of, our stock of shelf-stable items, so the pastas and the rice and the canned tuna, that's really low because our donors have gone on vacation or they don't think it's a problem. So what we would say, and that will be my, if you're going to give me my 30-second, is that it?
You're going to have it. Go
All right.
Start it now.
We are glad for the recognition internationally, but we can only solve hunger locally, and we need food donations. We need foods, and we need friends, volunteers, and we need funds to stock our shelves.
And is there a specific place that
manafood.org is the best way to figure out where you can drop off food, where you can receive food, and where you can donate.
That's excellent. That's excellent. Any other questions?
You know, you have a lot of produce now. Do you do anything with preservation of the produce?
So actually, Jamie
how
Raskin, nice little small world. Jamie Raskin was just at the ribbon cutting of our new community kitchen at Silver Spring United Methodist's campus across from Blair High School. And so we are now taking food that's not fit to eat, but we're using volunteers, including volunteer chefs from the Sodexo family and Marriott, to create the food.
Okay, thank you very much. A very, very good session. Thank you, all of you, for joining me this week, and thank you for joining all of us for this week's edition of Montgomery Week in Review. I'm Fred Evans. Please join us next week at the same time.